Hello, and welcome to At Your End Step. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And we have another fun-filled episode for you folks today. Before we get started...
Fun's a good choice of words.
I mean, we'll make it fun.
Yeah, okay. Yuck.
Before we get started, I do want to give a quick shout-out and thank you to all of our patrons over on our Patreon. If you're interested in becoming one of our patrons, you can do so by going to patreon.com/atyourendstep. All of our patrons, you help us keep the lights on, get the show up, and we super appreciate it. Sorry the show was late, and Mike didn't call me on it, but I definitely didn't upload it till Sunday. So that's that.
Oh, I didn't catch it this time.
Yeah. Mike was sick.
I was.
And my wedding anniversary was Saturday, so I was consumed with getting my wife the correct present.
I'm not going to buy this response. I'm very sorry. I'm not. Because we did it last Tuesday, and it could have gone up Tuesday, Wednesday,
but
Thursday.
I'd like to put it on Friday. Put up on Friday.
Right, but it's a real narrow needle. Like to.
I will tell you,
I
did edit it on Wednesday, and then it just left my brain. So I apologize
Thanks
for that.
Again, patrons for paying for literally that. So good.
That's my bad. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna come to the people and just let them know I'm a human being. I'm capable of failure, and I did.
I went up on Legit MTG today, so it looks about right.
Anyway, thank you again for being a patron. For this, we do genuinely care about the product that we create. We're just
like humans living life.
We're just busy adults with many important things to do, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it only gets busier. So, but we definitely have a lot of subjects to cover. Obviously, we have a new format that we're going to talk about a little bit later. So definitely stick around for that conversation.
That's going to be our competitive segment.
Correct. But we also have obviously we just had another banned and restricted announcement that actually had some impacts that we'll talk about. We want to give a shout out to, of course, the winner of Mythic Championship 5, and then talk about Brawl coming to Arena. Hopefully coming to Arena this week. They said they were going to do it, but there's still time. There's still time for them to not. So we will see. But first, let's talk about the banned and restricted announcement. So. Obviously, a lot of people were, again, expecting something to happen with this being moved up, and unsurprisingly, we did see a change in Standard. We see that Field of the Dead is now banned in Standard, and then we actually had a sort of a surprise banning. If not, it was expected to some degree, and kind of surprising it wasn't on the last ban restricted list, but we have Arcum's Astrolabe being banned in Pauper. Which I think that's the easy one to knock out real quick.
Yeah, we should definitely start there, just because the standard one leads us into the MCQ.
Right.
MC itself, not MCQ.
Yeah. But Astrolabe getting banned makes sense. It was ubiquitous. It was a card that turned into some of the cards that existed, like Gitaxian Probe or something like that, where it's just you just add it into your deck. It helps you fix your mana. It's a cantrip, and there's just you're having a hard time not playing it in certain archetypes.
Yeah, when we talked about it a few episodes ago, it might have been a couple months at this point, but I mentioned how I have a Pauper sort of box of just decks, and I said that I flat out wasn't going to update it because it would just take a lot of time, and I knew. And I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
I also would have had to acquire roughly another 20 Arcum's Astrolabes, so I'm glad I didn't do that either.
You clearly won the gambit, and now you're fine. You don't have to do anything.
But something I get, they quoted some numbers I thought were interesting. They obviously said that it was becoming ubiquitous. It was also leading to just better mana in general in the format, better mana than Pauper probably should ever have.
Oh, interesting.
Which I think if you look at Pauper's still a format that is has always been sort of. How I want to say this? There's some of the decks that are playing Prophetic Prism consistently, and I think the Boros decks, the Boros tokens decks are the ones that really have shown off the power of that. But even your Infinity decks might play it, or Chromatic Stars, things like that. So artifacts that they do that are not unheard of in the format. But one, they're a lot cheaper, so it lets you do a lot more things more consistently. But they said that at one point, by making all the decks snow decks, essentially, they said that they've seen 3+ color Skred decks pick up substantial metagame share, at times representing 15 to 20% of the field with a win rate greater than 55%. So you just got to play all Snowlands and Arcum's Astrolabe, so then every deck got access to an amazing removal spell. Yeah, it's just what it was. So I think like when you look at that, it's just because it's okay for cards like that to be to be good, like set of Prophetic Prism. But the difference between like Prophetic Prism and Core Skyfisher is how quickly you can put those chaining turns together.
Yeah.
They also mentioned like Trinket Mage being able to go get Astrolabe was pretty gross. So yeah, but I could believe like 20% of the time, like, or 20% of the metagame was Skred. Like that's crazy. So some very, very like jaded mono red players like, no, like we finally had it. But yeah, the Skred's just saying snow permanence. Like when you think about if you're Snowland into Astrolabe, like it's already shock, and it's just going to scale. So
yeah,
I'm glad to make them work a little bit harder, and it's a good move.
And like realistically, like that's not what you want a metagame to be with in any way, shape, or form. Like you want to have more of a diverse, and I think like that's where people went to have like a truly diverse metagame that didn't shift very often, and they didn't necessarily have to spend a lot of money on. And then suddenly you have this card enter the realm, and it just like make everything congeal and into sort of just 3-color, snow decks or whatever. And like now you can get back into, playing, some other variations of actual decks and like truly return to hopefully like a more interesting metagame. And that way you can actually see like what are the impacts of Modern Horizons in like some of the other like new sets that we've had since Modern Horizons, right? So I think like that's going to be interesting to watch if you are a like Pauper aficionado or someone who really is passionate about the format. But to move on into Standard, I mean, we had something that was pretty clear cut, pretty easy to like spot. A lot of people had called it, and we see Field of the Dead being banned, and to me, this is, and to many other people interested in Standard, this isn't very surprising to see. We know that this was a problem, that too many people were sort of drawn to playing the Golos-based decks as this being their sort of end game, and it was just absurdly powerful and really hard to interact with effectively. But yeah, I know that they. Ian Duke definitely had a nice little write-up here. Was there anything in the write-up that they wanted to kind of pull out?
The only thing I really want to pull out is what they said about the other. So sometimes they will name specific cards you're still looking at, but they were he's super vague in his description here. He did say that the Mythic Championship deck list did not affect this decision. Like,
yes,
they were locked in before that, which makes sense. This is finally we're aware of a few other community concerns regarding the Standard environment, including that early acceleration into Planeswalkers can be frustrating and the color green is strong across a variety of Standard archetypes. We'll continue to monitor the health of the environment, but feel it's important to allow the metagame to adjust to the absence of Field of the Dead before further evaluation. Right? So it says, as a philosophy, we prefer that players' deck building and metagaming choices drive the evolution of the environment whatever possible rather than be in our intervention. So they got real vague there. What we saw this weekend, and not just in Standard, but also in Modern, is we saw Oko assert its dominance. Like, the card was obscene all across the MC, and like, WotC is sort of touting, like, yo, we're going to talk about Javier Dominguez. He won with Gruul, but he won with Gruul with barely a 500 or like win-loss record.
He was what 8-6,
right? And I don't mean to take away from him. Like, he's very skilled, and he said that he agreed with some of the criticisms of like the breakers and things like that. So he played it the way he had to play it, and he won. Like, I'm not taking that away from him, but I am suggesting that like if you look at that and say, oh, Gruul won in this format, Gruul really wasn't crushing in that format.
No, and it's most important. Like, I know that on the Read deck list, they went over the MC results, and he was a goose egg against the Oko decks, I believe. So.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm honestly pretty worried, and I know that they're in a tough position, especially with Oko, because Oko is the face of Throne of Eldraine. Like, it's what you see on the boxes, it's what you see on the booster packs. That's a tough thing to ban, especially since they kind of just did that, because I do think Hogak was also pack art for Modern Masters, or Modern Horizons, I mean.
Yeah.
But it's one thing to like know that you can open banned cards. It's another when it's like the face of your set and your story. they want, but this is also the flip side of it. They want these cards to be good, like the face cards to be good. And now we're seeing some problems. You know, I'm playing Arena. I was homesick the last few days. Played a lot of Arena, and man, do I hate Standard currently. I know that sounds terrible, but I keep getting frustrated. I should just, I guess, play Food all the time. But like, the green decks do so many things that they have no business doing currently. It isn't just Oko, but turn 2 Oko is tough to beat.
Yeah.
But like, you know, obviously they get the best mana acceleration with, you know, Gilded Goose. They get access to the best, you know, Planeswalker you can put on that turn. They also get access to haste threats that kill other Planeswalkers.
Yep.
You know, in Questing Beast. Questing Beast continues to confuse me how it's a green card. I actually do not understand it. I'm not calling for its banning, but it is a weird one. And Once Upon a Time, they also get the best filtering. The common line for and you saw it all weekend, the common line for the food decks was turn 1, you could keep hands that were land light, you could keep hands that really wanted a mana accelerant, and then your Once Upon a Time was your free spell that found your Gilded Goose. Like, if it's okay if you still want to have a 1 mana creature in the format. Llanowar Elves was fine, we were very happy it was here. I'm not upset that Gilded Goose exists. But when you also add in a free spell in some of your hands where you get to dig super deep. So if you've already seen, if you have 4 in your deck, you have a 7-card hand, you don't have a Gilded Goose in it, you get to look another 5 cards deep. I mean, you're looking at 15% of your deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's probably like, what is it, divided by 5, whatever it is.
A lot.
Maybe it's closer, if it's divided by 5, then it's closer to 20% of the deck. Yeah, 20% of the deck. So you get to look at 20% of your deck for your 1 of 4. You have a high chance of seeing these things. So you have this perfect storm of effects that are just better than other decks. You know, other colors don't. What is? Look at red right now. Granted, red was super strong for a while, but like, what does it have to fight against this? The best red decks are paired with green.
Green.
Yeah, you have adventures. Don't get me wrong, you have adventures, but a bunch of those are Jund now. You know what I mean? You know, the blue deck, the best blue deck is paired with green. You know what I mean? Like, so it just. I don't know. Obviously, Oko is the one that looks the scariest. And when we look at Modern, we can talk about regionals that I played as well. Like, it's very, very good. But green is just in a place where, once again, they've pushed it to a power level that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what it is. But they're going to have to really look at it and what a banning might look like going forward. You know, that's to say nothing of Nissa.
Yeah. Who
was also obscene. And Hydra Krasis. So... I don't know, when they say that we want the format to even out, the format didn't gain anything in the banning of Field of the Dead.
No.
You know what I mean? So I don't know how these other decks are going to, if you want to play an aggressive deck, that's fine, but you will need to, and I want you to write me an essay, please, explaining in detail how I beat turn 1 Goose, turn 2 Oko, turn 3 Wicked Wolf. If you can tell me how any aggressive deck beats that curve, that's fine, but they don't.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Like, I have no interest in, like, I think early on, like, I had a lot of interest in playing Standard and trying to do it, but then, like, Golos, like, the Field of the Dead decks happened, and then I was like, well, I'm off it, and then, like, this ban was probably the worst case scenario if you were interested in playing Standard, because, like, people were like, cool, I'll just play, like, you know, Oko, because literally, like, it's just the best deck, and people are like, well, there has to be a best deck, and I'm like, you're not wrong. Like, there's always going to be sort of a best deck, but we're not trying to figure out like anything else.
No,
I don't think it's fruitful, right?
No, it's foodful, but
it is foodful. Yes,
I don't think we can. Just having played with the card enough myself now, I don't think we can look at Oko as anything other than a mistake. The card is obscene. It really is obscene. I just. They had an interview with Paul Cheon. We were talking about play design, and he kept talking about how much they tested it, and I was like, did you test it with the goal of then making it unbeatable? I just don't understand what you're supposed to be doing in the format. So I don't know, and again, like if you want a sort of test of this, if you want to look at Star City right now, Oko is sold out at $75.
That is a lot.
That is a lot of money.
That's a lot.
And it's not like we don't have a precedent for Planeswalkers being this expensive, but I think there's only 3 others that have ever hit this price, to the best of my knowledge.
It's probably Jace.
Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Liliana.
Liliana of the Veil.
And Ren and 6, actually.
Oh, I guess, okay, one more. I'm thinking one more. Jace Vryn's Prodigy.
Oh, JVP.
Because those did get close to 100.
Yes.
And fun fact, they might again. But but I think like when you look at that list, like other Planeswalkers have been expensive, but almost all of that's always pre-order and it comes down. For a Planeswalker to organically get to that price, and that list we just read you know what I mean? Like, you're talking about some of the most powerful cards in extended formats, let alone standard. And I'm using hand motions here for Morgan because I talk with my hands, but I realize that like I'm doing this for emphasis. You don't get to experience that. I'm sorry.
I'll translate. I'll be his gesticulation translator.
Just gesticulator?
Sure.
That's a cool superhero name. Who's that person with such vivid hand motions? That's the gesticulator. So yeah, I'm happy for the Field of the Dead ban makes sense, and it does tell you that there wasn't. I think it clearly tells you there wasn't a better answer coming in
anytime
Theros.
soon. Yeah,
because Theros is the next set.
Yeah.
So like there wasn't a better answer coming in Theros, and I think that's important. Maybe I'm crazy and it gets unbanned when they do have an answer for it, but I don't think that's what this is. So I'm glad that they jumped on this quick. Like I said, ripping the Band-Aid off quickly in a format like whatever. And I think like some of that stigma of like having banners. I try to talk about two things at once. Bannings and standard as starting to get reduced, which I think is good. Yeah. I really think it's good because we should have confidence in what we do. But like for myself, like I only played that deck on Arena. I'm going to get my 4 wild cards back. That's fine for me. In paper, that sucks, but that card is not dead. It's seeing play, well, no pun intended. It's seeing modern play. It's obviously a Commander staple. I'm not too worried about it from that perspective.
No.
So I'm okay with them doing that, but at the same time, like they're also like sheltering Oko, and like it's not just Oko. Like it's also Teferi. Like both of these still come down on turn 3 because the one difference between Gilded Goose and Land of Werewolves is the mana it creates.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Having essentially a Birds of Paradise effect makes it a lot easier for these Bant decks to just always be doing something incredible. And like if your turn 2 play is pretty consistently Teferi or Oko, I don't know what your opponent's doing that's better than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure. Do you want me to talk? I put regionals down in competitive. Do you want me to talk about that a little bit? Because since we're talking about Oko, like, what do you think is a smoother transition here?
I mean, like, we can circle back around to it.
Okay.
In competitive. So.
I do want to talk about Oko a little more in the context of Modern because that's where I played it on Saturday and it was gross.
I bet.
So.
But yeah, so that's standard going forward. I know that theoretically, if we're living in an Oko world, that Brian Gottlieb's Dance of the Manse sort of deck could be something that you look at. I know that was pretty effective against those lists, and now you probably get to build a better sideboard for it. But not saying
but like those are also those are like Doom Foretold decks, right?
Yes.
How is Doom Foretold good against Oko?
Well, it can be helpful that you can't sacrifice tokens. So
okay, that's what I'm missing. That's what I'm missing.
So that is helpful.
Okay, that makes sense then. Thank you for answering. That was effective.
I had the same idea when I first saw his deck. I was like, oh, what does this do? And I was like, oh, not token.
Right.
There you go. So you're you still have the goose problem potentially, but theoretically you can take care of the goose or like try to manage the board, sweep it, and then like follow up. And that's kind of how you have to operate in that deck. But I'm not saying like it doesn't sound like a great meta game like Dance of the Manse versus Oko decks or what have you. Like,
right.
I hope that people innovate. I hope that things change. I hope that we're wrong, right? But it's tough. I think there could be a greater discussion, and maybe one that's definitely a very like tinfoil hat. But the idea of where there are other games entering into Magic's competitive space. So do you think that they are actively trying to push things to be more powerful to get people's eyes on it, if that makes any sense?
Maybe, but I don't think the Oko's flashy.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, Oko doesn't have that. Questing Beast, I think, fits that. Questing Beast, explodes onto the battlefield. I know Jordan, who was on before, talked about the animation being 10 minutes too long.
It's
and that's
very
fine.
long.
But like, that's your splash zone. Oko's not that, though. Oko's just a value engine. Mm-hmm. So maybe the frustrating thing about suggesting that, like, hoping the format fixes itself is that, like, you look at Eldraine, and Eldraine has a lot of really cool build-around cards. Some of the Knights are like Sir Conrad, it says build around, Torbrand says build around, but then you make a Planeswalker that at no loss of loyalty shuts them off. And I think like it's hard to say I'm going to build around like Torbran when I know that my opponent is going to play a turn 2 or 3 Planeswalker that goes to infinite loyalty,
that
helps them gain life, and turns off that effect.
Can't even fry it.
Right. I mean, you can't. So, like, how are you going to look at those 3 color legends that we have? You know what I mean? We have the Queen. We have I don't know who the black one is, but whatever. The Torbran's part of that cycle.
Yeah.
Again, how do you build around those when it gets turned off? I guess the green one is the only one that makes any sense because it gets 4+1/+1 counters. So turn into elk with the 7/7. So I guess that's it. But like I think that's the problem. Obviously, and like we have powerful other cards as well. Things like Fires of Invention. Maybe something like a Jeskai Fires, like Sarkhan builds come back, and maybe those are good enough because Planeswalkers can help pressure. Yeah. But I mean, like Oko's really good at pressuring Planeswalkers. It makes hasty threats when it comes down, depending on what your board looks like. It's just, I think it's tough when you look at where can I build in the format, because I'm going to have to jump through a lot of hoops to make a deck that can build that, and some people are going to do that. Some people are going to work very hard on that, and maybe they'll get there.
Yeah.
But if you're a person who just wants to go grind your SCGs or wants to hit Mythic on Arena, you're probably just going to play Bant Food or green blue.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I just think it's frustrating because typically they've made 3 mana Planeswalkers, and like they have changed, they've shifted from the Lilianas of the Veil. These sort of like powerhouses that have existed, and they've tried to make them more narrow, and I don't think that they hit the mark with Oko, right? I don't think Oko is narrow. He feels like a Liliana.
Oko's not narrow. Oko's obscene.
Right.
Like the Royal Scions feels narrow.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think as a 3-mana Planeswalker, like I've played it a lot already, playing like Phoenix and stuff. I think it hits a sweet spot. Like it has an ultimate that doesn't just win the game, but is a super advantage.
Yeah.
Both of its plus abilities are effective. Yes, it goes to a lot of loyalty, but it doesn't interact with the board in the same way that Oko does. Like it goes to 6 loyalty, but it doesn't make a defender. You know what I mean? It's pumped to a creature wants you to attack. So I think like those designs are better for that. And obviously the ones that we have for the most part in War of the Spark, they only tick down. So you don't have this high ceiling of what you have to do. Their effects can be more devastating depending.
Sure.
But they don't tick down. But then you look at Teferi and you look at Oko and you just go, man, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Ko.
I see what you did there. It'll be interesting, but to kind of cap our discussion on Standard, we do of course want to give a shout out to Javier Dominguez for winning Mythic Championship 5 with Gruul. He was playing the Embercleave version, right?
Yes.
So Embercleave won a Mythic Championship, and I'm
it is a $20-some card now.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. To be perfectly honest, but the format is definitely dead at this point in time.
Yeah,
you could probably derive some things from obviously the Oko decks, but
it feels awkward to be like, here's our competitive segment. We're not going to talk about the Pro Tour from the last weekend, but yeah, the decks don't mean too much. I will say, I want to give some, Li Shijian deserves a ton of credit for multiple things this weekend. Mm-hmm. Obviously, top 8 appearance with one of the more roguish decks we had in the field, and some of the I really enjoyed some of the things that his deck was doing. He had to play against. I think he had to play against Nassif twice, actually. But watching Gab Nassif and a couple who I don't remember who else was on his team, but they brought a really metagame version of Simic. Like they had 4 Disdainful Stroke in the main.
Okay.
So when he had to play against Li Shijian, the only target it has is Embercleave, right? Which is not nothing, but
sure,
that's not great. And then the board, their swap for that is 4 Aether Gust, right? Mm-hmm. But Tien's bringing in Rotting Regisaur. And you saw this in their first matchup where, he had Regisaurs. And, Nassif had these Aether Gusts. Now, I think their first match, Nassif could have Aether Gusted an Angrath's Rampage. And may have actually been able to win that game and just didn't. He was saving it for, something better.
Yeah.
But instead, he just got hit attacked by 7/6s. You know what I mean?
Nothing better came.
It's you're not red or green. I was oh. So I appreciated that. I also appreciated that he got to sort of make some statements.
Yeah.
And didn't get banned from the game.
Wild. Didn't get money taken away from him.
Now, granted, it's easy to pat WotC in the back for that after they got to look at Blizzard and go, so not that.
So not that.
But at the same time, I wouldn't have expected that kind of response from WotC.
No, and, they're going to catch heat for that. That's just legitimately the truth.
And they're going to catch heat for it, and we know that they have been trying to move into China as a market.
Yeah.
We have the decks, the global series.
Deck, yeah.
So we know that's something they're doing, but I think it's important. Again, corporation, so let's not
Yeah, I'm
ride the
not-
coattails too hard here.
No.
But they had a decision, and looking at the world, they could have made the same decision kind of the NBA did. They could have made the same decision that
Blizzard Activision did.
Activision made, and they didn't.
Right.
And I think that's great.
Yes.
So-
I will commend them on doing the obviously right thing. How about that?
I mean, in a world
in
a world that feels crazy at times, yes, it is somewhat commendable to be like, hey, thank you for not being awful too.
Yeah. But I truthfully, I did not watch a lot of the Mythic Championship. I watched it like here and there, but it was not on my streaming screen a whole bunch. I had a pretty full weekend, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure. I was off Friday. I haven't been to work in a while. I was off Friday and was doing some work and was watching it most of the day. So I watched a lot of it Friday, and Saturday I was at regionals, so I did not watch. So Friday is probably the day I watched the most. I watched some off and on Sunday.
Yeah.
So.
But next up, we do have a sort of check-in with the Arena program, the state of the game, as it were.
Here we'd like to welcome the voice of Arena. Arena, hello.
So they released an article. It's their October update. They're kind of talking about what's going to be happening on this week during their sort of patch time on the 24th. They talked about the kind of a performance check-in because performance is still definitely a heck of an issue with this program.
It's been bad for me in this last week.
It is wild how much it's gotten like just worse.
It's weird. The memory leak thing has been a problem for myself.
Yep.
Where the game just wants to kind of crash after a few matches. But the thing that bothers me the most is, and they mentioned it here, is the the unresponsiveness specifically after games, but when you're heading to sideboarding. Like I have a consistent issue where it just pauses for a while, and if I click anything, it starts to do like the spin timeout, and then it catches itself, and it's like, here's your sideboard. And it's like, why did we do that? Why did we do that just now? Because it never did before. So that obviously they're gonna have problems whenever you add new sets, new formats also dropping like Brawl. You've got to balance that, but I hope they get ahead of it because
me too. And clearly, like, this statement and the other thing that's kind of tied in with this is that they are taking it very seriously. So seriously, in fact, that they are postponing the friendless update, which you just can't win, I guess. If you want better performance, you can't have any friends.
Yeah, you can't have friends. They'll have that out the same time that the Portal app comes out, so that'll be...
Nice. They'll be linked together.
They'll be linked together.
That's how you'll...
I'm sure Carrie will be happy.
And they are, looking for 6 additional software developers. So if you definitely want to get probably paid under rate for what you can do, go work for WotC. That's probably an unfair dig, but it's probably not wrong.
You wouldn't have to. Did they have it in this article? They're looking for more people. They are. Okay, yeah. That's probably definitely true because if you are a well-known software developer that pays good money, you don't have to advertise in your state of the beta updates.
You sure don't. You sure don't.
I guess state of the game, not state of the beta.
Yeah, out of beta now.
Yeah, so now there's no more.
We're quote unquote out of beta.
Out of beta, but no friends list. Friends list is still in beta.
Oh man!
Can I have friends? Well, that's a beta thing.
There was a new card game that was announced. It's a digital-only card game based on League of Legends. Forget the name of it at this point in time, but obviously
League of Legends, the card game.
Obviously, it's like Legends of
the League.
Terra something.
Legends of the League.
Anyway, I didn't get a chance. I know people were pretty. Yeah, Brian Gottlieb was actually pretty excited about it because he used to be a big League of Legends player, and
I think he said player. Was he something else? He was a big League of Legends stan. I don't know.
I mean, he's probably still is that.
Okay.
He just doesn't play as often. But I wonder if that had a friends list. It's probably built into the actual League of Legends client. Now that I think about it, but still,
is that how the card game in Final Fantasy VIII is built into the client?
Probably. Oh man. And they also obviously announced that Brawl will be coming on the 24th.
Thursday.
And there's going to be a celebration event. It's going to be running from the 24th through November 1st. The entry fee is 100 gold or 200 gems, and you get a bunch of Card styles and cards for the amount of wins that you get. One of them being Embereth Skyblazer. Are these all like, they're not all the ones that count your opponents, right? Because I know Skyblazer is.
Some of them are, yes, but no. I think that's actually the only one. You get the Thorn Mammoth, which is the everything. Whenever something comes in, you get to fight.
Oh yeah.
Taste of Death, which is sack 3 creatures, get foods. Fair Formation is the big flyer that makes fairies, and the Mace of the Valiant is the equipment.
Yeah, that gets beer every time you
Whenever
cast
you
your
cast a creature. Well, no, it's whenever a creature comes into, I think it's whenever a creature comes into play.
I thought it was whenever you're
whenever a creature enters the battlefield from your
command zone, right? Nope. Right.
I don't think so.
Anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's the mace.
Yeah, the Mace Windu.
But those, you know what? Getting Ember Skyblazer on your 4th win, not a great reward. The card's not good in non-multiplayer Brawl. Turns out
they're kind of not. None of those are kind of good in. Well, maybe the food one's good in 4-player Brawl. Maybe that's it. But
in 1v1. I think
no, I'm saying I'm in multiplayer Brawl. I don't think they're that good. But
sure, I mean at least Skyblazer cares about you having more than one opponent.
That's true.
So that's why it's kind of not great.
Yeah, I have a couple of Brawl decks already of my current Brawl deck sitting as like unfinished deck lists. I'm hoping I can just click the format shift.
Yeah, I mean maybe.
So we'll see if they'll let me do that or not. But
maybe that's the next time I'm going to fire up Arena is if this launches successfully and I can go in and actually build Brawl decks, and then every Wednesday I'll be able to play in my Brawl queue. Yeah, this is weird that beyond the event there will be Brawl play queue every Wednesday starting on November 6th. It's going to be available for 24 hours. So that's when you can actually jump into a queue and play a Brawl without like direct challenging people.
That's actually it?
Yeah.
But wait, it comes in on a Thursday. Will we not have it that first?
No, you'll have the event.
Oh, right.
So you won't have it, but you'll have the event to play Brawl in, that you have to pay money for.
Oh, man, that's so stupid. I'm sorry. I was excited.
So Magic Online just has events.
Yeah, just like
forever. And the queues rotate, but they're always there. Like, just leave it on. Hey, you know what? Remove the historic queue. No one's going to be in that forever, so leave it. Like, abandon it. What are we doing, Wizards?
Okay.
And then they're putting storybook cards in the game.
Yeah, that's
you can win and then buy them or whatever. So Arena, I don't know, and we'll mention this. We'll talk more about this, but I just don't. I don't know what you're doing, Arena, and I hope that you fix your program, that you get your friends list, and just give us Brawl all the time. Give it to us all the time. There's no reason for it not to exist all the time.
Yeah, I don't understand. They have to be just worried about any of these formats that don't cause you just to keep opening packs. But like, what stops you from just building a standard deck besides banning it?
There you go. That's the big brain play.
I guess.
Make cards that are too powerful, leave them legal, so you have to buy them, play them on Arena, ban them, refund you space bucks. Easy. Value, indeed. Yeah, I don't know. It's cool that they're getting the storybook cards. It's disappointing that you can't just open them in packs and you have to buy them. So, like, cool. Thank you. I appreciate this. So, I don't know. The longer this program exists, the more, like, upset I am that I can't just, like, go in there and do the thing that I want to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why.
Just let me do the thing I want to do. Your other program lets me do some of the things I want to do, but doesn't let me play Brawl. I guess it could let me play Brawl. I don't really know.
It used to.
I'm definitely not, but like, all right, well, put it in my calendar as a repeating event every Wednesday. Wednesday Brawl Day.
Can't do anything else. Playing Brawl.
I'm sorry. My evening is booked.
Because it's Wednesday. And you know what that means? It's brawling time.
Anyway, so before we jump into competitive, I do want to give a shout out to, of course, Comic Town. They're going to be having a standard PTU coming up here on Saturday, November 2nd. So if you have Okos already, then you're in luck.
And if not, prepare to spend a lot of money.
Including your Oko fee is going to be your registration fee, which is going to be $35. And it's going to be a noon's players meeting. So you're going to want to register before noon on November the 2nd. This is capped at 128 players, not all caps, which I appreciate.
I considered it.
Yeah, that would have been the smart play. But pre-registration is encouraged. So definitely sign up for the standard PTQ. I guess it's PTQ now, right?
It's a PTQ, yeah. It's a PTQ.
Wow. For the Player Store.
It's for the Player Store, yes.
Yes, correct. We've gone times the flat circle. Anyway.
Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be there.
I don't have a standard deck, so I definitely won't be there. I have like standards and singleton decks.
Go play Brawl.
Oh man. So I especially don't have an Oko deck, so
yeah.
I mean, you have 3 Okos. So.
Well, I have one of your Okos, one of my Okos, and another friend's Okos.
Yeah.
So
together
we have many Okos.
All right. So moving on to competitive. Speaking of Comic Town, you played in the regionals over the weekend.
I did play in regionals. I went 6-2.
That's not a bad record.
No, I lost my winning in, unfortunately, but
that's a bummer. But you finished what, 22nd?
21st.
21st. Okay.
So yeah, it was the amount of players though were a little over 200. So we didn't quite hit 9 rounds, but that means that by the time we got I know a couple of people I think 18 points was 10th place all the way out. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's I had the same record as people in top 16, but it just how it worked out. But yeah, I played Bant Oko Blade, Bant Sunoco Blade. That's it, Bant Sunoco.
Bant Sunoco. Bant Snow Cone.
Which here's the thing, I'm going to be honest. This, I want to maybe seg this into a different conversation. I apologize for that, Morgan. I'm going to hijack this small segment here.
Whatever, man.
I saw
it's your time to shine.
Well, I saw this. So Saffron Olive was talking about how on Twitter, I think it was kind of a shot at Ali Andrazi, but it was talking about the idea of trying to credit people with decks is really, really hard because who really did these things? And I guess Ali had been upset because he felt like he worked really hard on the field decks and then wasn't acknowledged in any way. But there's a lot of people who are well, I did this for this deck, I did this for this deck, and I think especially with Arena and arena deck lists, man, you churn through decks and ideas so quickly that it is getting harder to just be who did this, right? Mm-hmm. And they were even talking about who could a Kethis combo, for example. The Sifka and the whatever. What are they calling their house? They talked about it on the they had the whatever. But he even said Kethis, they didn't really create the Kethis combo deck. They just added a card to the Kethis combo deck. So all that's to say though that I thought I was going to try something kind of interesting with Bant. Sunoco, because there were a bunch of Bant decks. Stan Black had an article about Bant Planeswalkers. This Snowblade deck, I already liked it, and I talked about it a little in the cast last week. Well, we talked about the Open from last week, but we didn't, because of how MTG Goldfish ports decks. We looked at MTG Goldfish, they stopped at 25. Well, in 27th place was Bant Snowblade by Chucky Davis, right? I didn't see this deck list.
Oh yeah,
I did not. So I took a couple of different things that I saw, and there was a Bant deck that was a collected company deck that was somebody, one of our friends had posted for, and I jammed them together and came up with a list based off of that. And I came there, I was okay, so I was I'll have kind of a unique deck. I did not think I invented Bant Sunoco because I definitely didn't, but it was actually pretty popular in the room. And Oko was kind of everywhere, and I thought it was kind of interesting because I thought, I'm going to do this, but literally missed this person's list. And when I look at it, I was fairly close to it outside of a couple of things that he had that I didn't have. But the Planeswalker numbers were the same, mana base is really close. It was pretty interesting. So, I missed that, and of course didn't do a good enough search looking for it. I was I'm just going to jam this. And actually, Nicholas Montequila, who's a Northeast Ohio player, he actually won the event with Bant, Oko, Snowblade.
Oh, wow.
And I think our decks were different by 4 total cards. I played Cryptic Commands, he played Mana Leaks, I played Restoration Angels, he played Jace the Mind Sculptors. And our sideboards were a little bit different. But beyond that, our main decks were the same cards. So I thought I was doing something kind of this is kind of unique. It was not at all. So I think I read that Twitter conversation and I'm yeah, I totally get that. I had the same thing with the Atlanta Open I top 8'd with Panharmonicon, right?
Yeah.
Seth Manfield went off that weekend with it, and I didn't do it well in the Invitational. So it was look at this Seth Manfield played, and I was but I did it too. I know he's Seth Manfield, but at the same time, we both just took it from MTG Salvation and everything else.
Yeah.
So I think it is kind of interesting to think about when we, there's some decks you will always associate with people, the Rock, and Soul Maka, things like that.
Yeah.
But, I just think like when we look at how modern deck building is done, like that's my quick aside. I thought it was interesting how quickly things move. That like it is like you might have that one piece of tech that you've put into the deck, but like claiming a deck as your own is getting harder to do.
And realistically, that's just like, I mean, if the reason why like you associate like old school people with old school decks, right, is because like the information wasn't there until they were playing it.
That's true.
And now it's not the same. Like, or I should say, the association wasn't there until they won with it, right? Where they were successful with it. Where like now Ali Eldrazi streams. He streams with these decks. He's not necessarily like winning a tournament. Like he's advertising a deck to his like fan base to a certain degree, and like they're all working on it and tweaking on it. But that information's free to everyone. So you see that, you take it, you modify it, you go out, you have success with it, and then people just run with it. So there is just a lot more data that exists in decks that are seen, not necessarily in like the winning state. Like we don't see them in taking down like
and the Fluxes,
the Pro Tour or anything like that.
The Fluxes and a lot of people, like even like those decks that are like popularized by streamers and then taken otherwise, like those things are like collaborative builds a lot of the times, or like even suggestions. So that's a fair point. So it just I don't want to delve too far to that. I thought it was interesting.
It is
I'm
interesting.
not suggesting anything negative about Ollie. I think he was upset about that a little bit, but like he even recognized that like it's something he just kind of has to deal with. So like, and he said that on Twitter. So like, I don't want to like feel like that's calling like him out. Like I just thought it was an interesting, that Twitter thread and like Saffron Olive, who's a creator who plays a lot of brews, like he's really struggled with that because if he doesn't put the creator on things, like he got raked over the coals for not tagging the people who spoiled like individual cards. Like he would just like post them on like MTG Goldfish's Twitter account, and then be like, well, you should really be, WotC delivered this to these people, and it's like, okay, well, what once it's out there, is that really something I'm supposed to worry about? Like, where like, but like when we look at other forms of like journalism, for example, like who first reported it is something that is pretty important. Yeah. So I think it's interesting, but we can move on from that. As far as the actual tournament itself, I never cast an Oko in Standard or Modern before Saturday. And when I first cast Oko, I immediately recognized that the card is unbelievably be busted. Like, I played against Blue-White Control round 1, which was just a good matchup for me in general. Round 2, though, I played against Jund, and Jund is where I really figured out that like Oko like is a difference maker. I actually lost a pretty long game 1. In game 2, I went turn 2 Oko, my opponent went turn 2 Renin 6. And it was like, okay, let's see how these two cards work. My opponent ultimated his Renin 6. My Oko never left the battlefield the entire game. And I won that game. Renin 6 did everything it could possibly do.
Exhausted all options.
And it did not matter. I got to do some sweet things. Like, every round I casted Oko, it was like... like compared to like some anime where like I was like learning, I was like, oh, and it's like he's getting stronger as he battles. I against that person I got to I had a Batterskull in play, and I got to
wait. So you realize that you're just describing when Goku is training in like the gravity chamber and he just keeps cranking up the gravity,
just like but like. Let's say that's where I go to the DBZ abridged. Like, you got to read your Saiyan handbook. But I had a germ token on a Batterskull, and it was just like I need to attack this Renin 6 before we like. I was like, oh, I will make the germ token an Elk.
Oh,
and attack for 7.
Yeah,
right. And then the next turn he tried to abrade my Batterskull, so like, I'll bounce it. I still have an Elk because the germ token doesn't die. I was like, what is this? But across that first Jund match, I realized that Liliana the Veil was like always like a choke point against those decks because like I need resources, and that's what starts to drown you. If they can kill your early threats and then get ahead with that. But once you have an Oko, then you have creatures that can pressure Liliana that aren't actual cards.
Yeah.
Right. So like they can't Liliana's effects don't really do much. Like the making a sack a creature doesn't really do much to Oko. It's just time. And if they want to keep ticking up, then they're just, all of a sudden now they're denying themselves resources. And, so that is where it like really opened my eyes. I was like, oh, this deck, because I played against Jund in the MCQ, which is Bant Snowblade.
Yeah.
And it was a problem. I played against Jund twice in this tournament. and Oko just like was obscene, just beat the brakes off of my second gen opponent as well. I got to do things like take an opponent's Monastery Mentor when I was playing against Blue White Stoneblade. That was cool. Like it's like he cast it and did a couple things, like passed, and I was like, well, you have this food token now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to cast the Sword of Fire and Ice, trigger my Monastery Mentor. I was like, ooh, we're doing some stuff. It was pretty great. My losses came against Affinity. It was what's the green enchantment? I can't remember now. Hard Scales.
Hard Scales.
And we played close matches. My sideboard was geared more towards Amulet and Urza, so I was running like Damping Spheres and things like Storm counteractions. So I did not have a great sideboard for just regular Affinity, and that showed. But I also that's the round that specifically taught me that it was Monty is right, and you should have Mana Leak and not Cryptic Command, because Cryptic Command is, I think, unplayable right now, and I feel bad for having run it, because that's the first round that I got blown up by Veil of Summer twice.
Ooh,
and let me tell you, their Cryptic Command cost a mana. Mine cost 4 my entire turn, and probably the game. And it happened multiple rounds where I just came to realize like Cryptic Command was just bad, and I wish I hadn't had it. So it was good before for forcing in attacks, but it just wasn't doing enough, so I would cut that. My second loss came to Jeskai Control, and I didn't play Magic that round. I mold game 1 I kept a hand with double Oko and a mana creature, and my only other spell I drew was a third Oko, and they're good, but they're not good when it's your only spells and nothing else. And then game 2 I mold a 6-lander into a 1-lander with an Astrolabe, and I also played Arkham's Astrolabe, sorry, and like a couple snakes. And I discarded a hand size 3 or 4 times, so kind of made a game out of it. But his hand was so so that was my win, like my win in round, and that was tilting. And then I played the last round and got asked a weird question, which was we were in like 29th and 30th place, and my opponent asked me if I wanted to concede for SCG points. And I was like, definitely not. Now, I don't know if that question was actually like concede and then we'll talk about prize. Like, that might have been what that was. I'm not going to take it that way. And like, I paid $40 to get in the tournament, so like...
Yeah, I'm going to play.
Yeah, I'm going to play. Like, that's what it is. And then he asked if we wanted to split, and I was like, at 29th and 30th, I really don't want to. Like, at this point, we could still technically make... depending on how the breakers went, like top 16 on the points, I'm like, nah, whatever. And it was Dredge, and I beat that. But I thought it was really odd, and I don't know, because he asked if I cared about the points for the season, and I was like, this season I do not, and that's why he asked. I don't blame him for asking, but I also think it's a weird thing to ask. Like, you're not just if it was like if we were playing for like top 64, yeah, I would have conceded immediately and gone home. Like, I don't care about those points, but that's a weird question when cash prizes.
Money's on the line. Yeah.
So, I don't know. But yeah, it was a good tournament. Oko was crazy. I was honestly really happy. There was granted, I think 2 copies of like Amulet Titan did top 8 ours, but Monty won our regional in Columbus with Bant Snowblade. So I think it's a real deck. Like, I think it's got legs, and it makes me happy because like I was worried, as we talked last week, about how Stoneforge Mystic was just not playable. I played a lot of Fair Magic on Saturday, but I loved it. Like, that's the kind of Modern I enjoy playing, is like, Jund, say whatever you want about Jund, but like playing this against Jund was like, that's a fun matchup to me. Like, everything's interaction, everything is just, oh man, it's just, it was great.
Well, good. I'm glad. I'm glad that was enjoyable. But
Oko's obscene.
That's not surprising. But the bulk of this discussion, the bulk of what we're going to be talking about, is the new format, which is Pioneer.
What's the skull that we're going to be talking about? If we're going to talk about the bulk, we should probably talk about the...
No skulls here. Only bulk.
Can bulk survive without skull?
You know what? I'm sure they had to at some point in time. Do you think like they just were a couple actually in secret?
Man, that would be actually heartwarming.
Yeah,
I'd really like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's my headcanon now. So thanks for that, I guess. Anyway. What we are actually going to be discussing is Pioneer, which is, again, a new format that
definitely isn't Frontier.
That is the only that should just make you think about it. Like, pioneers are on the frontier. So like that's it. Do you think they're just like super salty that like Frontier was taken? They're like, dang, that's a good name.
I think they should be salty because Pioneer isn't a good name.
No,
there's a lot of people on Twitter who are pretty upset about that. And Pioneer does have some connotations,
pretty negative ones, which is great.
Like, whatever, it's a format name. It is weird though that they have like, it doesn't seem to fit a scheme. It doesn't fit any scheme other than to reference Frontier. Like that's the only thing.
100%.
Because like Legacy, Modern, Standard, and I guess Historic. Like if it was like Old West, I don't know, like Gold or wait, I don't know, Gold Rush City.
Yeah.
Like I want to name the formats all these various things on the Oregon Trail. That's what I want.
Sure.
Ford the River, like that's my new favorite format.
You've died of dysentery. The format.
That's vintage.
Anyway, so Pioneer is like I said, a new format. It is kind of what you think it would be. It is, postmodern. It's postmodern.
It's postmodern.
It's postmodern.
It's very artsy.
It is RTR block forward, with the exception of 5 cards, which are the fetch lands. The fetch lands are banned. Everything else is game from RTR forward, which basically means it's like when I started playing competitive Magic forward, because like literally RTR Standard was my first open.
I thought Innistrad Standard was your first.
Well, so I mean, like technically Innistrad was still legal.
Gotcha.
Like it was. I started like my first pre-release was M12, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's obviously interesting. I think off the top, I think banning like the fetch lands is the best idea they can make for the format.
I definitely, if they want it to be accessible, that's long been, as much as we love Modern, that's been a hallmark of Modern's like accessibility issues.
Now, personally, having just acquired a foil Windswept Teeth, really wish they wouldn't have banned fetch lands, but I respect their choice.
Hey, I paid you for the other things.
I appreciate it, but again, if I had just won real big on that foil Windswept Teeth, woo, Papa would have been happy, but it's all right.
Papa.
I respect their choice.
I do as well. Somebody, I don't know, it was some pro, but did mention the irony of like printing Fabled Passage, but then being like no fetches in this format. Because Fabled Passage will be a staple of that
100%. You will still have your slow fetch.
But I do think that like that. This is a good way of like, because like even looking at the cost of these cards, Polluted Delta is a $30 to $40 card already.
Yeah.
So like these become gatekeepers of the format, and there will still be gatekeepers in this format. Don't get me wrong, but if the gatekeepers aren't lands, it opens you up to doing a lot more things. Like it's like, okay, I can ignore this deck to play this deck that's cheaper, but like I can't just play like, oh no, I want to play this deck, but I have to play a worse version because I can't afford Scalding Tarn or whatever else. I will say, looking at the not Theros, the Zendikar set coming in the future. Long shot call. Don't think fetches are going to be in that set.
Don't think we're going to see fetches. Just like
how funny would it be if they put fetches into that, but like the fetches were already banned in Frontier.
Yeah, would not expect to see those there, unfortunately. Which so your enemy color fetches could be pretty spendy, pretty pricey. The name's bad. I think the sets included are good. I think the ban list, they have been pretty forthright with saying that
it will expand.
It will expand. There will be both on-cycle and off-cycle bannings. So do not be surprised when things get banned sooner than you may have expected. And basically, they're kind of saying that and saying you've been warned. Like not in like a sort of like finger wagging sort of context, but just saying like this is how this format's going to exist.
Right.
We want it to be organic in some way, and we want to see what actually needs to be taken care of. They could have been very heavy-handed, been like every card that we've ever had banned in Standard from RTR block forward banned, and like they could have just been like that's where we're at. And I think like that wouldn't have been a surprising take, right? That wouldn't have been a surprising thing for them to do, because I know Modern had a pretty extensive ban list when it first was announced.
It did, and Modern also went through after the first Pro Tour a pretty expensive shift in those things. The one thing I will say is a lot of the cards, if you look at that ban list that have been banned in any format, let alone Standard, some of it was due to the fact that you just didn't have good interaction at those points. One of the reasons they had to print Fatal Push was a hope that it would help vehicles like stay in check, and it didn't, because it was really the only premier removal spell.
Yeah.
So you get a lot more formats for that. I'm not saying the removal is amazing.
It's not
in this format. You don't have Path, you don't have Bolt.
Nope.
You don't have Dismember.
Nope.
So things to consider. But the other stuff too, a lot of the things that are on that ban list have this mechanic called Delve. Delve gets helped out a lot by fetch lands.
Yeah, not having fetches is definitely a real cost.
So yeah, you can play your treasure cruise, but you're going to have to work the way they kind of intended you to to do it. Now, it still could be too strong.
Yeah.
Jeskai Ascendancy is like a legit thing in this format too. But I think some of those things, like letting it breathe a little bit, makes sense. Now, before we start talking about like what we think we might see in this format, I know we talked a little bit about this in show chat. They're pushing this pretty quickly. We have it'll be on Magic Online tomorrow, so we're recording this on Tuesday the 22nd.
Yeah,
so it'll be on Magic Online the
23rd.
We'll start by the Friday after this coming on. We will start having weekly PTQs in the format.
Yeah.
On Magic Online, and it's also a GP format in the first GP slot next year. If you look at, they actually updated that.
Yeah,
there's
there's
a lot of Pioneer.
There's 4.
In the first one, right?
Yep.
Like I'm saying, like all across the year is a lot of Pioneer, and we're gonna get the Players Tour in Pioneer as well.
Correct.
So like they're really pushing this format. I felt when I first did it, I was not excited about it. I still don't know where I'm at, though. Seeing a lot of deck lists today have helped because I can't help it. It just like turns on the happy parts of my brain.
And like I really feel like for us personally, we have a lot of good memories about some of the cards that are in this pool, like that are going to be existing, because like RTR Forward was like, it
was our sweet spot.
Yeah, it was the Halcyon days of like Central Ohio Magic playing.
Hey, going back to being able to say you piloted one deck, Big Boros is mine, and there wasn't anything like it. Okay, Michael Jacobs said it was the biggest pile of trash he's ever piloted, and I get to keep that one. So
you do get to keep that pile of trash. That is correct.
And I guess I could play it almost entirely in this new format, and I won't.
No,
but I'll probably play some amount of Mutavault and Elspeth.
Correct.
But so you're right about that. But I immediately felt overwhelmed because this seems like such an odd announcement in addition to like a bunch of bannings. But like we get Brawl on Thursday on Arena.
Yep.
Historic technically is starting now too.
Historic, you can play Historic right now on Arena.
And then we get this format, and I have to assume like this has obviously been planned for a while. Like Frontier,
obviously it had to have been.
We have a secret set in 2 weeks, which is probably Frontier related,
probably
Pioneer related. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep getting the name wrong.
It's all right.
But this just feels like my brain was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. Like
it feels like a
whole
lot.
new format's a lot, and I want to be defensive of Modern. It's been frustrating recently, but like I really have we've really have bought into Modern, adopted Modern, and bought in both the literal sense and the metaphorical sense, and like. So I think we were dismissive probably of legacy players as the time passed on. So if you're going, haha, we told you, I get it. Your format is super dead now, and I am sorry for that.
Congratulations, you're vintage now, and all the vintage players are all skeletons now, so it's fine.
They died of dysentery. But like when you look, because if you look at that Magic Fest thing too, there's not much legacy.
I don't think there's any legacy as a Mythic Championship.
As a Magic, as a GP?
I don't think there's any. I think it's all standard, Modern, Limited, and Pioneer.
Gosh, somebody mentioned, does Team Constructed become then Modern, Pioneer, and Standard? I am in for that.
That's probably what it is, to be perfectly honest.
So I think this seems shocking because I don't know how well... WotC had this planned, but this still just seems like, man, they just keep piling a lot on. They really do. And I know that we are both at the point in our Magic lives where it's like, man, I just can't do as much with this. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to be like that. That's just how things shift. But, man, it just seems like a lot all at once. Now, that being said, a lot of people are latching onto this. And, the deck list that I've seen, I already built a deck on Moto, literally the Black-White Vehicles deck that was posted. I was like, well, we have the tickets for this. I'm just going to build this now before stuff spikes tomorrow because some cards have already started to spike. And honestly, Smuggler's Copter is a card that'll probably end up getting banned again. But
so, I don't think so.
No?
I genuinely don't. I think, when you look at Smuggler's Copter, then you look at the plethora of answers that do exist within the format that are good at answering it. When you realize that Smuggler's Copter, if Abrade was in the same time frame, They were, but Smuggler's
got
Copter was
banned.
banned.
Yeah,
Like,
but they were.
but I mean, like, so a braid happened like at the tail end of Amonkhet,
And
right?
they still decided it wasn't enough to not ban Smuggler's Copter.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, but a braid's not the reason why I would think
Sure,
that.
sure. But I mean, like, it's definitely a card that will exist,
absolutely.
along with a lot of other cards that will exist that keep that in check.
I'm of two minds of this because I not just Smuggler's Copter in general, but these decks. My first thought, and I expressed this, was this is going to end up being a graveyard, just like what Extended sort of became. Like all the things that were degenerate and standard now get additions. So is this where we're going to see Aetherworks Marvel? Yes, and people are brewing hard with it. Energy decks in general look to already be pretty popular as far as like fuel building decks. Are we going to see Rally of the Ancestors make a strong comeback? Are we going to see Bant Company come back? Are we going to see vehicles come back? Like, does that make for an exciting format if it's just a bunch of like the best strategies that oppress standard? I've already seen mono blue devotion, mono green devotion, and mono black devotion. Like are these the things that are going to be exciting? You know what I mean? And maybe that's just because like that's how deck building works. You go back to the things that you know, and the format fleshes itself out. If the format fleshes itself out, and yeah, some of these old strategies are going to be good enough, but maybe the new things are exciting. But if it's just a bunch of if it's just super extended, right, where it's just like a bunch of old standard decks that we're all tired of, that's bad. Hopefully it moves past that quickly.
I think it will. I know that we look at a lot of these old sort of oppressive archetypes that got cards banned, and we're like, well, why wouldn't you just do that? It was literally too good for that standard. But we do have this. We do have a larger card pool. We do have things that can potentially be answers to those strategies. Obviously, those strategies also get new cards, so maybe they counteract that. But I think like you have to figure that out and see where things settle. And again, if something is too oppressive, then Wizards has stated that they're not afraid to give out a banning of some persuasion. So I do have it's not a format that I'm probably going to be invested in. It is a format you can probably successfully cast Siege Rhino in, and that is very tempting. But I think it's something that people knew was going to happen, right? It was eventuality.
It's certainly an eventuality, and I think they picked a really good starting point for the format.
Yes.
I agree with the banning of fetch lands. Like, I think one of the other things you have to do is make, like, Modern did a good job of feeling like its own format quickly, right? Like, it wasn't really like Standard, but it wasn't really like Legacy, and, like, Modern feels like Modern, right?
Right.
You need Pioneer to feel like Pioneer, and one of the ways you do that, granted, it makes it feel like Standard a little bit, but one of the ways you do that is by switching that mana base up a little bit and seeing mana bases that are, Shocklands, Kaladesh Fast lands, Pain lands, Buddy lands, Tango lands, like stuff where it's like, okay, we really have to start looking here. I started playing a couple of freeform matches on Magic Online today because for Pioneer, and people were playing the lands from Shadows of Innistrad. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what we called those, whatever their nickname was.
The
was it Peekaboo lands?
Sure, Peekaboo lands.
Whatever it is. But I didn't think those would ever see play again.
Do you don't have that many. So there is an imbalance in lands, right? So
yes.
There's an imbalance in enemy.
You don't have the allied colored fast lands.
You don't have the allied colored pain lands either.
Oh, you're right.
So enemy colors currently do have an imbalance. Hopefully that gets rectified. You can reprint pain lands in core sets. You can reprint fast lands in core sets, or we need to go back to Phyrexia. But either way,
yeah. See, pain lands are Dominaria specific,
sure.
right? The allied ones are.
Yes. All the pain lands are.
Yeah.
The only reason we have pain lands is because they were in Origins.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the fast lands are still Phyrexia, Mirrodin specific.
Yeah.
So yeah, core sets are those. That's fair. They could do functional reprints of the fast lands if they wanted to. That seems scary for older formats.
Seems real scary for Modern.
Yeah. But maybe the core sets will have to do some double duty here going forward.
Maybe. I mean, and we also, so who knows what this Mystery Booster product is, right? Like, you just announced this new exciting format, and then,
You're saying we already get Pioneer Horizons?
I don't know.
This format doesn't exist yet, but here's cards directly put in.
Maybe not Horizons. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's a Master Set, and maybe
it's just like a Hogak and a bunch of other.
I don't know, and obviously, like that's the whole point is to get your mind thinking about why do we have this mystery product? So we want it to be exciting. We want to announce it now, and then announce the format it could be a part of later. And I don't know what their marketing strategy is. Who's running this whole thing?
Their marketing strategy is a swarm of bees right now. That's what it feels like. Look at this! 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 Look at this!
It's literally just crawl swarm.
Yeah, like it's a bunch of bee stings, and Mark Rosewater going, "Stop it!"
And like that's just conjecture. No one knows what the mystery product is other than the people that made it. So who knows? But like the sooner they can sort of balance out that land and balance it, the better. More than likely.
Agreed.
So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see what shows up. I expect it to be some pretty absurd combo stuff. Like I don't expect mid-range to be where you want to be. I imagine that it's going to be hyper aggressive or like hyper combo.
Maybe there's some things to consider with the format. One thing I will say about your Siege Rhinos, I think Siege Rhino could be playable. I saw already on Twitter there's an interaction of someone being like, "I can play with Barbaros again," and then someone's like, "It'll be an elk." Like, so oof. But when you think about a deck with Siege Rhino, that deck gets to play 4 Thoughtseize.
Yeah,
which is going to be like, it's going to overshadow the format. I think it really is as a card. When you look at what it did in Standard the last time it's there, you look at its ubiquity in older formats. Like, if you look at it for a check for this format, Thoughtseize is it. But Thoughtseize is a real check. Like it is very good. So like you could maybe play your mid-range strategy because you get to play good disruption. You know what I mean? So maybe give it some time there. I think that like we have to remember that like Khan's block got shifted a little bit because of the fetch lands, like so you could play obscene colors and things like that. But just like the 3 color bases in there's still some strong cards that could start seeing play again. I mean, like you could literally start playing Crackling Doom again, right?
You'd have to sell me on like why Crackling Doom would be good.
I don't know what the format looks like yet.
Sure. But yeah, I agree.
But when my opponent, I don't know, Aetherworks Marvels and Ulamog going to play,
yeah,
I might want to Crackling Doom that bad boy. You know what I mean?
You may.
And like, so I think that's interesting. I think the other thing with this format too is that like, so you mentioned like Modern had this ban list coming in, and a bunch of cards that are now legal sat on that ban list for a while. So
Wild Nacatl.
Well, Wild Nacatl was legal and then got banned. But I'm talking about like Jace the Mind Sculptor banned since its inception.
Yeah, Stoneforge.
So I think like the difference there and like how they're approaching this format, that one they were afraid of those cards and like I think they think about the time period for Modern, they really needed Modern to be successful. So they were very careful with it and had been careful with it. Now, though, we see that, and granted, we can't say that it would have been perfect if it was all unbanned then, because we have new sets and we have literally almost a pioneer's worth of sets between then and now. But this format, if we start with no ban list, right, then besides the fetch lands, and we understand that those aren't coming off, right? It's just like looking at the artifact lands, like those aren't coming off. Right?
No.
No
good can come
once
from
we have
this.
that expectation, we're not looking for something to get unbanned to save us, right?
Right.
So when a banning happens, it's for the pure health of the format. We're not looking for just I think it makes us, if they're aggressive for their bans based on these things, and we know that something isn't coming off the ban list to save us, then I think it makes the format feel different, and I think it feels better in that sense. You know what I mean? Like, and apparently Allie Warfield, Spirit Animals, high five Allie. Apparently every single BNR now, she is like, we should have banned Splitter Twin. And I was like, yes, thank you. Of course we should. So we're gonna. I think
finally someone's speaking sense.
I'm gonna have to network with her, and we're gonna have to start doing like a convention every BNR announcement. Like I don't know, like some sort of Splinter Twin Lonely Hearts Club.
Sure.
But like we're not looking for that. Right. You're not looking for that in Pioneer.
Right.
So I think like that feels kind of refreshing. Where it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm tentatively excited about it. I don't know how much I'm going to do with it. If I do, it'll be on Magic Online. Just because like getting some of these cards is meh. But I still have a lot of the cards, which is nice.
Yeah. Like that is something that like as I just said, like this is definitely when I started playing Magic on a pretty like competitive level. I got an eyelash in my eye, which is great. Anyway, a pretty competitive level. So I do have a lot of these cards, which is kind of handy.
And like by missing, I think one thing that's interesting is by missing Innistrad block, which I think a lot of people I saw today were kind of upset about that. Like, oh, we couldn't include an Innistrad block. But by missing Innistrad block and then M12 and M13, we get to skip Snapcaster Mage, Cavern of Souls. We get to skip Mana Leak and Lightning Bolt, right? So like,
we could skip Liliana of the Veil.
Well, that's true too. And like, as much as I love Innistrad, and the first Innistrad block is a wonderful, wonderful block. We miss things like Lingering Souls. We miss Faithless Looting. Like, we get to ignore a ton of cards because of this that are super powerful and problematic. So as much as you might want Innistrad block, like, I think it makes a ton of sense. And we'll see what the format does. Now, I will be interested to see, like, if it takes off in popularity, then things will probably have to be addressed in the format. Like I said, Black gets probably two of the best cards in the format right off the bat in Thoughtseize and Fatal Push.
Yeah. Now, to counteract that, Fatal Push definitely has a harder time being enabled without fetch lands.
Without fetch lands, absolutely. But even at its base level, it's still premier. And when you look, like, White does not have a good path alternative, right?
No.
Now, again, I don't mind unlocking other spells, though. I mean, that means Declaration in Stone becomes what we're looking at. Red, though, goes back to Shocks and Lightning Strikes, which is... maybe it's better for, not having super aggressive decks, but it is awkward, when you know that your decks are immediately a little bit lower on the power level strain. But again, maybe we're looking at things like Mizium Mortars or stuff like that.
Yeah, or maybe you're looking at, what's the shock that only hits creatures but has spell mastery? I forget what it is.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Fiery Impulse.
Yes.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
But of course, like that, different decks kind of want that. So,
yeah.
But it does open it up to playing it. Like, or a control deck might want to play Fiery Impulse as opposed to both decks like doing the Muscly Arm meme, playing Lightning Bolt. So blue doesn't really have its premier counterspell in this format. Like, what's your best turn? Like, without Mana Leak, without Remand, like what's your best 2-drop counterspell in this format?
Silumgar Scorn with a dragon.
Okay, so don't get me wrong. Esper Dragons is a playable deck. I'm in for it. All right? It's been a while, so attacked with an Ojutai, and I would love to do it.
You do get Chromium now.
Hot damn. That's a spicy one. I think that's, and again, I think that's interesting. Then you maybe take a look at those archetypes and do that sort of thing with it. I know I'm starting with this vehicles deck because like it appealed to me and I can start doing that.
Yeah.
But I am interested in brewing with like Copycat because I want to play Splendor Twin and I can play Jeskai Saheeli here.
You sure can.
I think it could be like a Fires of Invention deck that maybe it's a Sarkhan deck as well as a Saheeli deck. You know what I mean? Like, so if you play Fires of Invention and then you untap, right, you can play your Saheeli and your Felidar Guardian in the same turn.
That's great.
You could play Little Teferi to protect the combo, just like a Modern.
Yeah.
But then it could just be a Sarkhan deck that maybe also just kills by attacking the Planeswalkers.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a possibility. So I think like that's where we can start looking at, maybe you start with those older archetypes, but then you start to warp them and shift them, and the format becomes its own.
Yeah, it's people are going to immediately be drawn to what they know. What they know is standard decks of the past, and try to put new things in them.
Not just decks, but cards. Like cards that are powerful.
Yeah. And I think like what the natural course is going to be, like you'll probably have some people that do that, some people that try to break out on their own. Some of those people that break out on their own and build something maybe a little bit unique may have success. People iterate on that. There's bannings, and then the format kind of naturally progresses and evolves. Sure. And I do think that's going to be a more rapid process than what people think.
I definitely agree with that. We've had a ton of content creators who are trying to jump right on this bus. This is where we'd like to tell you that we're rebranding as the Pioneer at your Pioneer stuff.
I don't want any association with Pioneer.
At your end Pioneer.
No.
Okay.
Please don't.
No, we're not doing that. But like we already have like Arena Deck List also. Is it a second podcast they're going to do, or is it just changing?
I don't know. I don't know if that's actually even like, because they do have, there is a Pioneer Deck List.
Well, and I think like they just wanted that for Twitter because they like to and I think that's been a great resource. Like them just going through and retweeting decks and stuff. Like I come across a lot of decks that way.
Yeah.
A bunch of the decks posted on our Discord were all from that today. But like I know that Ross Merriam and Tana Grace are also doing like it makes total sense. We have a lot of content creators that are going to jump on like the newest wave.
You get to like, especially if you are someone like a Ross Merriam who definitely likes to brew, who definitely likes to build decks, and certain types of decks which people are definitely always going to want to sign up for. People are always going to want to figure out like what's the blue-red spells deck in this format, and you can go to Ross Merriam for that information, right? So like it makes perfect sense to be like, yeah, let's be on the ground floor of this and like be able to really like cater our base. Like you get a base from this. So.
No, it makes total sense. But I do think because of that, because it's also going to be so heavily touted on Magic Online, like that first day of deck dumps is going to be wild. But like those first deck dumps are going to be a big deal for the format because anything with a proven track record will immediately get some status associated with it. So,
and it definitely is starting small. Right. I really feel like it's starting small, but also like they're going to get a lot of data from Magic Online.
Yeah.
And I you know, who knows how their data is weighted, if there is anything particular like more or less important based on where they're getting it from, but like they're going to have a lot of it because I think that people are genuinely interested.
People are genuinely interested, and I also think that like, so I built that Motor Vehicles deck today, and the deck had 4 Thoughtseizes in it, right? Thoughtseize was 8 tickets on Magic Online, right? So like if you're starting there with the format, and most of the cards I bought were, you know, 0.03 ticks or things like that. Now that'll change if decks gain a popularity, but if I'm telling you that Thoughtseizes is going to be one of your format staples, and then you can go play with that deck and pay $8 for a format staple, not in paper, but still, the nice thing is then you don't have this, even in Standard right now, like you can't go play an Oko deck, or in Modern, you can't play a Wrenn and 6 deck on Magic Online without a crazy investment. But this format might hit that sweet spot, at least in the beginning, where you don't have decks that aren't showing up because they're expensive, right? Or vice versa. So I'll be interested to see that.
Yeah. And I think like when you look at this and you have like just a smaller pool of cards, like your Standard cards have more of a shot of making an impact, right?
That's true.
Which is really helpful. So Eldraine's kind of a weird one. We have Oko in Eldraine. We have Fires of Invention in Eldraine, which are both like cards where you look at it and be like, well, these are engines or these are value cards. So it's like, it makes sense for them to show up, but like, hopefully that continues to happen further down the road. And yeah, it's interesting. Like, I do think that there's definitely going to be a shift in priority as far as formats go, at least officially through Wizards of the Coast. I don't think that something like your legacy events are going to be shoved to like your Eternal Weekends, and like that's just what it's going to be. It's going to fall the same way as Vintage goes, and that moves like the discussion away of like reserved lists, right?
It does. It kind of, I think it kind of closes the book on it a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you hear that and it upsets you, but I think Pioneer closes the book on that. Like they have already shown that they're going to stick with the reserve list, and this is their way of like being like, nah, really, we're done with it. Again, local scene is always going to be where Legacy thrives. Yep. Even here we have local player Robert Wilson, who's been integral in making a I can't remember the name of his format is, but it's like the chicken dinner series. But he's been going from store to store, has people sign up in advance to give out dual lands as their prize with it and stuff. And he's sold out the 2 or 3 they've already done. I think it's chicken dip. Is that what it is? And like, there's like, you get like buffalo. I don't know. I'd have to ask him. Like, it seems really cool. It's not something for me, but I've been happy to see like him. But he also has to go plan out his slots because he knows what his prizing pool is going to be. So he has to do that. So I think that's where, just like with what Vintage is now, that's where Legacy goes. It certainly stinks, to know if you're a big Legacy player to go within literally the last 5 years to go from representation at Star City Invitationals and even the Pro Tour with M25 to this.
Yeah.
But I think that's also in line with like the player base. Like if you have all these players coming in from Arena and you want them to get into the game and then make sure their cards still do things, like Historic's stupid, and all of the stuff Historic now makes even less sense with Pioneer. Not that I would expect Pioneer to come to Arena like anytime soon.
Yeah, that's not soon enough for them
to do it. Yeah. But I don't know why they would pretend the Historic's a thing. I literally do not. So,
it's like we already said, it's literally a thing that they can say.
But why not call it Arena Pioneer? And like, even if you're never going to fully catch up to paper Pioneer, right? Like keep the idea the same in people's heads. But whatever, it's fine. But like I think when you look at that, like it's hard to sell like, hey, you just came in, you played Arena. I through my job, like I know young people who like Arena is how they have found Magic. And like they get like awestruck when you show them like expensive cards, like, oh man, this is worth so much. But at the same time, like it's unappealing to them from a standpoint of like if they owned it, they would not play it.
Yeah,
they would be afraid to. And 2, like the stuff just doesn't appeal to them in the same way. And you could say, well, that Magic's changed a lot. It has. Yeah. It has. So I'm sorry for that if that is upsetting and that's your format, but. I think you and I can both agree. Like we follow grinder formats, so we are going to follow Pioneer.
100%.
Like I think that's just how it's going to be. Whether or not we personally will end up liking it, I don't know. I am optimistic about the format, overwhelmed by WotC's release mechanisms.
Yes. I think that's a perfectly like good way to kind of encapsulate the feelings that are kind of going on. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
And it's tough to see like the format get released and then like I don't know. I can't tell you the amount of regret I feel for like I shouldn't have sold any of my cards ever. I would have had every Pioneer deck.
I thought about that. I don't really feel regret for that. Like
I'm just that's a joke, but it's just like when you think back, you're like, oh dang.
I think I saw a lot of people with that kind of remorse, right? Like, oh, if I would have known. But like, I think for myself, even when I was being like successful and stuff, not that I'm not successful now, but but like when I was like playing those sorts of things, I still had, especially with my wife, had a very specific agreement that like I needed to make sure that I wasn't spending, the money that's coming in from our employment on this. You know what I mean? I always needed to stay above that line. So yeah, some things were just like I didn't keep multiple tier decks at a time. Like Modern, I'm at that place now because I've collected over time.
Yeah.
But like I think that like it just gets to that point where it's like, yeah, I could be upset I sold these cards, but when I sold them, they were still worth a lot more money than they are even right now, and I was able to turn it into these things. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it stinks that I don't like. I've wanted multiple times to still have Jace Vryn's Prodigies for random decks, but like I sold them when they were close to $100 a piece, to go to Spain. You know what I mean? To play in the Pro Tour. You know what I mean? So like I don't feel bad about that. And like you're the same way. You're very fluid in your Modern decks because you're like playing different things.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy to go, oh, I wish I hadn't sold this stuff, but I think when you look at those decisions, like, yeah, this is always going to happen. It was always going to happen.
Yeah.
So, like, do I wish I had Kaladesh Fastlands? I really should still have Kaladesh Fastlands. And I only have blue, red, and white, red because it's the only stuff I played in both Standard and Modern. But like, man, I really wish I had Blooming Marshes because I don't want to pay for them this week. So like, yeah, that happens. But
yeah. So we'll just see. We'll just have to see. We'll be able to talk more about it next week, which is kind of wild. We don't have to wait for a player's tour or anything like that. We're going to have data.
We'll get decks.
So that'll be real cool. I'm excited to. Maybe there'll be people streaming it, and like that'll be exciting to watch people actually get in the queues and see what happens. So
I'm going to play some.
Yeah.
At least tomorrow, and then I'll switch to Brawl.
Yeah, of course, 100%. But I think that kind of sums up our feelings on it right now, and that's going to be everything for the show this week. So we do thank you so much for listening. If you want to reach out to us, you can. We have multiple avenues for you to do so. You can leave us an email. Leave us an email? I don't know.
Deposit one email, please.
You can send us an email at our email address. It's at your endstep@gmail.com. I'm falling apart at the end of the show. At yourendstep@gmail.com. We also have a Twitter account. It's YourEndstep, and when you add us, it's at YourEndstep. And then finally, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/@YourEndstep.
Kind of.
I don't think either of us are very active on Facebook, so if you're reaching out through us, you know what? PSA, get off Facebook.
Yeah.
Marcus Zuckerberg doesn't care about you or anyone else, so like, just stop using it.
None of us like what our grandparents are posting.
So. None of us. Thank you again to, of course, our lovely sponsor, Comic Town. You can find out more information about them by visiting worldofcomictown.com.
Great event for regionals.
Yeah.
Always great.
I imagine that the standard PTQ is going to be much of the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
So definitely check that out. If you are listening to us via a podcast app that lets you leave a rating or review, we would appreciate it. We feel that we're a 5-star podcast.
Maybe not at the end of this episode, but... Most of the time.
Listen, you got to keep up. You got to fake it till you make it. That's what I've been told. So.
Send us a review. Leave us an email.
Yeah, whatever. We're gonna get a phone line and get a Google voicemail. Leave us some voicemails.
We're not gonna get a phone line, dear Lord.
No, no one would use it, and then the people that would probably scary.
Yeah. We had some emails that are interesting. So
yeah, for sure. I should just don't do email anymore. How about that?
Yeah.
Twitter only. Anyway, just kidding. We also want to give a shout out to, of course, Legit MTG for hosting the show. Thank you for doing that, and check out some of the articles they have on there or their online store.
I know that the editor, Josh Glazer, there is pretty pumped about Pioneer. So, and he started with Cat Pact was the deck he wanted to start with, Morgan.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So there you go.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's perfect. And yeah, thank you again to all of our patrons for of course, being a big part of the show. If you're interested in joining our Patreon, it's patreon.com/@YourRentStab. But that is going to be everything for us this week, and we'll catch you next time. You have a great one. Bye.